Welcome everyone, and this is our Cyber Doomsday event. What we're going to be talking about today is how prepared is the broadcast and media sector to defend national security. And so what we're going to be going through is a fictitious scenario where a broadcast network infrastructure gets infiltrated over a period of time up to the Cyber Doomsday, where some kind of rogue state or rogue actor has control of it and can use it for disinformation, for propaganda, and for other kind of nefarious activities. This will be drawing on some real life events that took place in France and the TV5 Monde network, where the infrastructure was infiltrated and services were taken off air, and the platform's social media networks and channels were used for putting out information about French troops at the time. And while that, I guess, didn't have implications for the wider general public, it did have serious implications for those involved at the time. And well, I think it's fair to say this is probably an extreme scenario we're going through today. What we're going to showcase that the kind of building blocks that would lead up to something like that are very realistic, and there's various elements within that could cause serious issues for organizations, such as data breaches, commercial issues, or operational issues. So we're going to be talking about what are the risks involved, what's the technology involved, who would be involved in doing some of these activities, and obviously what are the implications for industry and for individual organizations. However, it's not all doom and gloom. We've got some great speakers lined up today from the National Cybersecurity Centre, from the Defence Science and Technology Laboratory, and from British Forces Broadcasting Services. And they're going to be talking about some of the latest innovations and measures that we can do to protect ourselves as individuals, organisations, and as an industry. And also, we're going to be talking a bit about the DTG Cyber Security Working Group and what we're doing to kind of provide a collaborative working group to meet some of these challenges head on, and how we can work with the wider industry. So I'll go for the agenda for today, which is, if my laptop's going to be working, there we go. So in a moment, we're going to be handing over to Dr. Paul Keeley, who you can see there. He's from Division Head at Cyber and Information Systems at DSTL. He's going to be taking a look at talking about their influence program, what can be said about risk to the critical national infrastructure. And he's also going to be sharing some of the hot topic cyber defence research activities that are going on. So that sounds very exciting. And then we're going to be handing over to Pauline B from the National Cybersecurity Centre, who is sector lead for broadcast, media and space. And she's going to be talking about the supply chain, how easy is it to be hacked, how to protect your content, and some of the key security issues for the sector. And then we'll go through our attack versus defence scenario, which I just mentioned. We've got Dr. Asad Musa, who's CISO at British Forces Broadcasting Services, and who also chairs our DTG Cybersecurity Working Group. He'll be going through the attack part of the chain. How would someone get into a broadcast network, and what would the implications be? And then we'll be going back to the NCSC to talk about, all right, if that did happen, what would the defence side of it be? And then we'll talk a little bit about the DTG Cybersecurity Group and the work we're doing. And then we'll have some time for QA and wrap up. So you'll notice your mics and your cameras aren't working if you're an attendee. It's because this is a webinar. But you can put stuff in the chat. So if you have questions as we go through, put them in the chat. We'll get to them at the end. We'll have a list of questions and we'll put them to our speakers when we get there. So without further ado and delay, we're going to get to Dr. Paul Keeley from DSTL. So Paul, over to you.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you for running my slides today. Apologies that I couldn't share them directly. Welcome everyone. My name is Paul Keeley, as I was introduced, and I'm one of the directors at the Defence Science and Technology Laboratory. I head our cyber and information systems area, and I'm very much talking to you today from the science and technology angle, but my aim really is to really give you some foundation to the conversation we're importantly having. Importantly, this conversation is often very classified, as you might imagine. It's a very sensitive topic, but we're going to be sharing with you as much as possible to give you some of the insights of our priorities. I do apologise, that means I will be using slightly more of a script than I normally do. Hopefully you wouldn't have noticed, but I'm just going to confess that because we are being sensible about what we can share, as you might imagine. So just go to the next slide, please. So our focus in DSTL is absolutely on putting the science inside capability. And what we're really doing here is building on what's shown and being published by the governments. The two pillars really are Global Britain in a Competitive Age, that's our integrated review output, and our science and technology strategy. And from these, it gives us the absolute strong belief that through world-class science and technology and innovation, we can make a massive change and a necessary change for capabilities as we go forward. Today, I'm going to share you some perspectives of what we're doing in response to that. And I'm going to focus equally on cyber and influence. And for me, these topics often come down to information in war and information as war. So next slide, please. So where are we today? Well, we're talking about a hypothetical scenario, I'm pleased today, but this, in real today life, the strategic context is increasingly complex, dynamic, and it is certainly competitive. The UK, our allies and our alliances and the multilateral systems that have assured our security and stability for many generations all face significant diversifying, intensifying, persistent, and proliferating threats. These threats are from resurgent and developing powers and from non-state actors such as violent extremists. The pervasiveness of information and the pace of technological change are transforming the character of warfare. Old distinctions between peace and war, between public and private, between foreign and domestic, and between state and non-state are increasingly out of date. Our rivals employ an expanding, diverse and largely unregulated set of information tools to influence target audiences' attitudes, beliefs and behaviours. These weapons are increasingly employed above and below the threshold of war. The soft power landscape is changing. Those who challenge the values of our open and democratic societies increasingly do so through culture. Systemic competitors like Russia and China invest heavily in global cultural power projection and information operations influence. Our allies are also taking a more strategic approach. Cultural relations is one of the three pillars of German foreign policy and an important part of French foreign policy too. Our perception ourselves of other countries and therefore their soft power is also increasingly shaped in the digital space, driven by individuals and non-state actors, including through disinformation. As we become increasingly challenged below the threshold of open warfare, the battle of the narratives and use of non-lethal means to influence and secure objectives will characterize the future operating environment. This new character of warfare and constant competition means that cyber remains a national priority to build on and maintain the UK's status as a leading, responsible, democratic cyber power. Defence has two main areas of interest, and they are attack and defend. Next slide, please. Thank you. The National Cyber Force is transforming our ability to contest adversaries as an integrated component of our military capability. The National Cyber Force NCF provides capabilities that will be used to deceive, degrade, deny, disrupt, or destroy targets in and through cyberspace in pursuit of the UK's national security objectives. Established in 2020, the NCF conducts targeted, responsible offensive cyber operations in support to the UK's national security priorities, bringing together defence and intelligence capabilities. The NCF draws upon personnel at GCHQ, MOD, and across intelligence services, and DSTL, that I lead, is an avowed one partner. We are under one command for the first time working together. This also sits across many other adjacent capabilities in MOD, including the DSTL science and technology capabilities and global intelligence, for example, from GCHQ. So used in combination with diplomatic, economic, political and military capabilities, examples of cyber operations could include interfering with mobile phones to prevent a terrorist from being able to communicate with their contacts, helping to prevent cyberspace, and that's where we are today, from being used as a global platform for serious crimes, including fraud and sexual abuse of children, for example. And also fundamentally keeping UK military platforms, including aircraft, safe from targeting by weapon systems. So I'm now going to talk to the right side of this slide a little. As defence, we rely on information held on connected networks and systems. As we rely on those, opportunities exist to attack us via cyberspace will almost certainly increase. For defence, the cyberspace threat is broad, with information networks, weapon systems and platforms relying on cyber for their capability. As part of the wider government initiatives to improve the UK's cyber security, we will harden our own resilience to a cyber attack by protecting these systems and networks to ensure they are defended against current and future threats. Capability in the future will be less defined by numbers of people and platforms than it will be by information-centric technologies, automation, and a culture of innovation and experimentation. Complementing the work to harden systems and networks, the ability to respond and recover in the event of a cyber attack is essential. And that's why I'm here today. Cyber is a social technical domain. How people react and respond is just as important as the technology. And the UK's goal is to cement the UK's position as a responsible and democratic cyber power, able to protect and promote our interests in and through cyberspace. The cyber domain is unique in that it is man-made, subject to rapid technological change, and at an early stage in the evolution of the rules and the norms, all of which combine to create an enormous opportunity and risk. Over the past decade, we've established the UK as a cyber power, building cutting-edge, defensive and offensive cyber capabilities, and a leading cyber security sector in industry. In the digital age, sustaining this competitive edge in cyber will be a fundamental component of strategic advantage through science and technology. And that is where DSTL, we are working to put the science inside that capability. So next slide, please. I now want to move towards influence. So the world of science and technology today is very different to that even just 5 years ago. New areas of study are emerging at the intersection of established domains. New technologies and applications of technology are developing and being adopted faster than ever before. New data collection, curation, analysis techniques are producing greater volumes of data and access to information faster, with more nuanced understanding and more sophisticated insights being drawn from them. We all live in a data-rich information age in which the combined power of this exponential growth in computer capability, data, and digital connectivity is fundamentally shaping almost every facet of modern life. And in contemporary society, people communicate and interact with each other in new and complex ways, which has led to a change in traditional military operations. Influence is now central to military activities. Words, images, and actions can achieve strategic, operational, and tactical influence. At DSTL, our Influence Science and Technology program is developing enhanced and novel influence concepts, tools, and techniques. And these are underpinned by behavioral science to modernize information and outreach. And then an example of this could include the representation, integration, and synchronization of behaviors and behavioral effects in decision support tools we call wargaming, modeling, and simulation. And just reflecting briefly, being a cyberpower really does involve having a world-leading cyber security to protect the digital homeland. The ability to project power in and through cyberspace where necessary, and the right legal and regulatory frameworks to govern that activity and foster trust. All underpinned by world-class skills across the country. Science, innovation, industrial partnerships, and importantly, international alliances. Furthermore, in terms of cyber, Her Majesty's government's stated ambition is to be a great science power, does require us to step up in our ability to protect our data, our information, our networks, systems and assets, as well as intellectual property. And that will better mitigate the rapid proliferating cyber threats and support cyber operations at all levels, and those being to operate and to fight. So cyber defense is a proportionate counterpart to operational capabilities, and it is absolutely underpinned by agile science and technology. It is non-discretionary capability that supports this overall government narrative. Last slide, please. Second to last slide. So we DSTL are a vital component in the transformation MOD's cyber resilience to meet these threats of the future. And I just wanted to very briefly share in appropriate detail some areas of that we are focused on. So we're fundamentally looking at reducing the cyber attack surface through identifying and accelerating hardware and software technologies that can eliminate vulnerabilities that we're all used to now. We're also looking at the change in information security through identification of novel mechanisms and approaches. And like many areas, AI is in this area as well, so artificial intelligence. So we are looking at ways to develop self-defending, self-recovering concepts for autonomous detection, analysis, decision-making, and reconfiguring for our computers and networks. And this links into other areas of interest, including quantum communications and networking, how we can lead that into the automated recovery and human machine learning. So it is these innovative intersections of technology coupled with working with a diverse range of organizations, including MOD, government partners, and industry, academia, and partner and international, that's really exciting. And I just want to leave you with a closing thought on the next slide, please. So my challenge to you is that for me, information is in war, information as war. It's non-discretionary. So as a closing thought, back a long time in November 2017, the then Prime Minister, Theresa May, stated, Russia is seeking to weaponize information, deploying its state-run media organizations to plant fake stories and photoshopped images in an attempt to sow discord in the West and undermine our institutions. So I wonder, alongside cybersecurity, how prepared are you to counter this type of action? Thank you. That's my introduction from a Ministry of Defence perspective today.
Thank you very much, Paul, and definitely food for thought there. Hopefully we'll be able to approach some of these kind of questions you've raised there throughout the rest of the presentation. But yeah, I like the sound of world-leading cyber presence and defence. Sounds like we're in safe hands. Yeah, so there's some questions coming in, but we'll save them for the end, and then we'll have the Q&A session. So, Paul, if you can hang around for the question and answer, that'd be great.
I'm here all day, here for the whole session, Alex. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So next in the agenda, we've got the National Cyber Security Centre, and at the DTG, we've been involved with them quite a lot recently through the Secure by Design work that we've been doing with DCMS as well. We'll be mentioning a bit more about that later on in the talk as well. But here, first off, we've got Pauline B, who's going to be talking about the supply chain for the broadcast and media industry, and some of the threats and issues facing that sector, and how we can work to mitigate any risks. So, Pauline, over to you. And I think you're showing your own slides, aren't you?
I am, yes.
So we can see your slides now.
You can. Brilliant. Okay, thank you.
That's brilliant.
So, hello everyone. As Alex said, I'm Pauline B, and I am the sector lead in NCSC for broadcast media and space. And today I'm going to present a few slides on the threats to the sector, how easy it is to attack you through your supply chain, and how you could protect yourself better. Concluding with a few cybersecurity issues and the support that NCSC provides to the sector and where you could seek that additional support. So let's look at the broadcast and media part first. Broadcast and media is a key contributor to the UK economy, and through advertising, manufacturing and employment. And as the slide says, there's an estimated £72 billion in value to the sector in 2021. The sector informs the public about important events, from world events, UK events, parliamentary changes, climate change. The sector can put a certain spin on items of interest which others do not agree with, and this could make you a target. With influence and opinion on key topics by selective information there, again, the sector can be perceived as influencing, so something to really watch out for. Any of these events could make you more susceptible of website defacement, DDoS attacks, or tracking / spying on journalists. A lot of disinformation is published, and although it may not be the broadcaster who starts this, they are often the industry that gets blamed. Cybercrime within the sector can range from low-level sophistication phishing to the theft of intellectual property, or known as IP, which could turn up on the dark web markets. In the last year alone, there's been a few noticeable ransomware attacks on broadcasters, one being the Sinclair broadcaster in the US, which was in October 2021. That impacted on its operational, office networks, email and telephone. This had an immediate effect on its share price, and the ransom request there was for $5 million. So not a small number. Australia's 9 News was also hit in June 2021, taking it off air for a period of time. And we have little information on what actually caused that attack. So to summarise, a wide range of actors are interested in the sector. State-sponsored actors are interested in controlling narratives, influencing opinion and suppressing criticism. Criminals will be motivated to target high-profile company with valuable intellectual property. But remember, no one is exempt from this. So looking at the supply chain, how easy is it to attack? Quick answer, it's really easy. Supply chains can be large and complex, involving many suppliers providing many different things, from screens and cables and video cards to software and facilities management. They all come within most of your supply chains, and they all need to be secured in some way. For some parts of the supply chain, a simple key lock is sufficient. But for others, especially where intellectual property is prevalent, you need more security. According to the 2016 Security Breaches Survey, very few UK businesses set a minimum security standard for their suppliers. And this is where we see our first obstacle to be tackled. There's been a number of high-profile attacks on supply chain, and it's had a significant impact on the companies that they supply to. So it's not just the key person, it's the supply chain. For content makers, the last thing that you want is for your program to be on the internet before your customers paid for it or got it to air. For others, you really do not want that new piece of software on the market under someone else's name or brand, and both happen. So think about setting a minimum security standard that you would expect from your suppliers. This could be Cyber Essentials, Cyber Essentials Plus, an ISO standard, or completing a questionnaire where you can actually gain some information about their security practices. The important thing here is know where their baseline is. Data breaches, ransomware attacks and malicious activity from insiders or attackers can occur at any tier of the supply chain. Even a security incident localized to a single vendor or third-party supplier can significantly disrupt the plan, make and deliver process. For example, it's reported that the SolarWinds incident, let's call it, cost in the region of 12 million, and this is still being calculated, and this was 11% of their business. So to help with this, NCSC has set out so what they're calling a set of supply chain principles, which I've started to put on this slide for you. So checking the arrangements from your suppliers, this requires you to know key aspects of your suppliers via contracts or auditing, for example. Reporting to you if they have had a breach of security, build where necessary or possible assurances into the contract. Do you want or need them to have a baseline of cyber security, say Cyber Essentials, or undergo pen testings of their systems before they connect to you? Where possible, establish key performance indicators to measure the performance of your supply chain security management practices, but above all, promote good cyber security behaviours. And this should also include physical and secure personnel security. That you need to look at as well continuous improvement as well. So looking at that, you need to encourage your suppliers to continually improve their security patching regimes. This may help them actually with further contracts, provide advice and guidance of good security practices. By sharing your knowledge with them, you gain a better insight of what they're doing. All these security practices should, through exercising, you practice them through the exercising. Knowing what yours and your suppliers' processes are will help should a breach occur. Learn and act upon the exercising that you do, building a trusted relationship with strategic partners or suppliers, discussing security issues to protect all in the partnership. You need to be looking at supply chain management as a shared issue. So a few key points for the sector. I think it's jumped 2 slides. No, I've jumped 2 slides. Sorry, 2 pieces of paper moved. So how to protect your content. Let's look at a few key points here. A trusted partnership means one where you can openly discuss issues and agree on a secure way to share data and content. Patching, this is common sense, but it's still not done by everyone. It's essential for good cybersecurity hygiene to ensure you patch regularly and quickly. So when you're notified of a patch, act upon it. Learn about your suppliers. Find out what their view of security is. Does it fit with your own business model there? Are you happy with how serious they take security of their assets? Practice good cyber hygiene yourself. Phishing emails come in many guises. Know how to identify them, what to do with them. Do you have a secure repository that you can put them in so as they can be looked at by your IT department? So do you sandbox them? And please don't open anything that you're not sure about. If you don't know the person who's sending it and you're not expecting it, best bet, don't open it. Wi-Fi within public Wi-Fi then in hotels, cafes, etc. is not secure and should not be trusted. Think about how many times you've stayed in a hotel and how much your spam emails increase afterwards if you've used their Wi-Fi. Try to use a separate dongle that you can tether to or your phone. Make sure the Wi-Fi that you connect to is secure. Looking after your IT equipment, most people go, yeah, it's okay, nobody's going to be interested in my stuff, but people are. So look after your laptop, your phone, your tablet, use good, strong passwords and don't leave it hanging around. You would be surprised at how many times when they're traveling on a train or sat in a conference, just leave their laptop there while they nip off to use the facilities or grab a coffee, whatever. Please don't do that. Lock your screen when it's not in use. Event freebies, certainly, although lovely to have, are a big security no-no. Use privacy screens, as I mentioned here, where you can. Keep yourself as safe and secure as you can. So looking at then a few key issues for the sector, this is a summary of some of the security issues you may need to be concerned about. Please read this and think about how you would react if a ransomware happened to your business. As previously mentioned, think about exercising a ransomware scenario. This allows your managers or your board to consider issues that they may not have thought of. Do you have a disaster recovery plan? What happens to your data or your company if you cannot get your data back? Have regular backups held off-site to reconfigure your systems. A disaster recovery plan should also be held in hard copy, just in case your systems are not accessible. Think about how you communicate with each other with no email, something that we rely on so much these days. But certainly one of the recent incidents, they had no email facilities and they actually resorted to WhatsApping their staff to say, don't use the systems, don't use this. We're going to be setting up a WhatsApp group for the company just to be able to do it. So as they could do it then on personal phones rather than work mobiles as well, because they were all connected. So build that trusted relationship with your supplier. They may have a system which integrates with yours. If theirs is weaker than yours, that makes yours weaker. Keeping your system up to date is essential. As I mentioned, patching, really, really important. If it's not patched, then it's more vulnerable. Know the threats to your sector. Who might want that information? It's information that you hold. You want to hold it securely, but who's interested in it? You may think no one, but actually everyone's data is at risk. For example, if you make the next Doctor Who series and you need to get it to the BBC, what is the best way? You don't want to see pirate copies being sold before it's aired using an insecure IT to transmit it to your customer. Equally, you wouldn't want to see some propaganda appearing in the middle of your programme that you had made. So some useful bits of information now, hopefully that you and possible groups that you will be able to join to actually help you talk to your peers. So CISP is, as I say, an information sharing platform. It's run and administered by NCSC. There's actually a specific section there for the broadcast and media section. It allows you to talk to your peers, your customers and NCSC. NCSC actually post open source threat information on there, indicators of compromise, and on CISP there's actually a closed media group that you can join, and as well as the open platform there, which actually the open platform covers all sectors. So if you're thinking of joining that, if you think that may be of benefit to you, where you can actually share that information and gain some knowledge as well, contact me. I'll give you my details later, but contact me if you want further information there. We actually run an information exchange as well. NCSC and CPNI run several information exchanges, but we have one specifically for the media content and broadcast sector, and we also have a subgroup to that which looks at just suppliers. So MCBIE, as it's known, has been running for nearly 5 years. It gives a HMG view. It's there to support you, your peers in the business. It's open to security staff and their threat analysts. We don't report back to anybody at all. We don't allow reporters into the group at all. But we do have that shared and that trusted environment. It's run along similar lines to the DTG working groups and meetings with mutual trust within that partnership. As I mentioned, MCB currently has 2 groups, one for the main broadcasters and content makers, and then one for the supply chain. And again, contact me if you want any further information there. Currently, through the IE framework, we're actually running what we're calling IE 21, so Information Exchange 21 this week. And as an IE member, you would actually be able to join that information. And that's key information that's covering cyber, physical and personnel security, both from the intelligence agencies and also from industry. So we do encourage industry speakers on the IE events that actually share their best practice with their peers and with their colleagues. You've also then got the NCSC advice and guidance. So our website actually hosts a variety of information covering everybody from large organisations to small one-person, companies, one-man bands, to the public. All of our guidance there is free. It is actually written, hopefully, in a way that is easy to understand, easy to navigate round. I've added the website address there. There's also links there to exercising. So if you wanted to try an exercise in a box, there's also advice there for boards, company boards, asking what are the key questions that a board should be asking and should want to know about. So that's me. Thank you for listening. If you've got any questions, I'm happy to take them at the end. And I've also added in there my email address, as you can see. And also, if you have a cyber incident, please report it. It may or may not reach our threshold. Our incident management team works alongside National Crime Agency, police forces and the other intelligence agencies, and we will help to make sure once it's triaged to make sure it gets into the right stream to actually be dealt with. If it does reach our threshold, you will be working very closely then with NCSC to try and sort of like navigate your way through that incident. Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks very much,
Alex.
Pauline. Very interesting. And yeah, it's interesting to see that a lot of this kind of way of mitigating these threats is just common sense approaches, and knowing the threats, like you said. And I think that's where groups like the ones you mentioned and also our cybersecurity group can help kind of ensure that everyone's across what's going on, really, can't they?
Very much so.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much for that. So now we're going to be going through our doomsday scenario, attack versus defense, and we've got Dr. Asad Musa from the BFBS, who's the CISO there. He's going to be talking about a fictitious event where someone takes over a broadcast network. So yeah, intrigued to see this. So Asad, over to you.
Thank you, Alex. Let me share my slides. Okay, so thanks, Alex. And my name is Asad Musa. I'm a Chief Information Security Officer at BFBS. And to provide you with context of the Cyber Doomsday scenario in broadcasting, which I will be presenting in this section, I would like first to show you a preview of this future threat of the Cyber Doomsday scenario. My colleagues in the BFBS Creative have teamed up with Ben Cook, a documentary producer, adventurer, and a former captain in the Royal Marines, to look at the UK Armed Forces response to the increased cyber attacks and natural disasters. So let me play this for you. It takes almost 1 minute, and we'll come back to discuss it and talk about the attack against broadcasting.
Today, online is a new frontline. We live in a world where a hacker with a hashtag can have more of an effect than a soldier with a rifle. Cyber war is here, and militaries everywhere are already fighting. It's not virtual war or video game war, it's real war. Just imagine for a minute if all the cyber attacks we've already heard about in the news came at once.
Cyberspace is the ultimate gray zone.
I want to update everyone on the ransomware cyber attack that has impacted on the Colonial Pipeline over this past week.
The scientists' Stuxnet shows we are only a step away from cyber conflict.
Crippling UK infrastructure and obliterating national security. Healthcare systems brought to their knees. Water contaminated. Pipelines closed. Transport halted. Militaries disarmed. A cyber apocalypse. The perfect preparation for our adversaries to physically invade. For years, experts have predicted all-out cyber war is coming. But is it?
So this is like a high level of the future threats that we are talking about, and Paul and Pauline were referring to as well, the future of cyber warfare could likely to happen. But in this session, or this section of the webinar, I'm going to focus on Operation Cyber Doomsday, and this is a fictional hypothetical scenario of a major national cyber attack against the broadcasting and media sector in the UK, and we gave a date of 25th of December 2025 to the hackers will launch this attack. So we're talking about events that happened in the past, that if they on individual broadcasters and other organizations and other sectors, if they all happen at once against our sector, orchestrated by one actor. So let's talk about the motivation and the aim for this attack. This is going to be a state-sponsored cyber warfare. So this is a foreign government orchestrating a national level cyber attack against the UK. And the target here is to cause political and then economic chaos, social unrest, financial markets crash. So this is not secret keys, or this is not financially motivated hackers just after ransomware. This is a state-sponsored attack against a nation. And let's meet the hackers. The hackers we are talking about here, they are well trained in broadcast systems. They understand the ins and outs of the broadcast ecosystem. They are well equipped and well funded, and they have plenty of time on their side, and they have a clear target, which is attacking the UK national on the national level through the broadcasting sector. Let's first talk about some lessons from history, and just to see whether this is this something happened in the past, and going back into 1987. If some of you remember, this one is it's called the Max Headroom incident, where some hackers, they managed to compromise a broadcaster in the US in Chicago, and they interrupted a live game, American football, and they broadcasted something. I'm going to play it with you. It's less than 1 minute, just to show you if you haven't seen it before.
McMahon and McKinnon, 14-0 Bears. Then the defense, which hadn't put up a sack in 12 quarters, finally did.
So there was this black screen for a few seconds, and then this guy appeared with a mask. Just nonsense. But the idea is, this is what you are seeing here. This is a live hijacking of a broadcasting on TV. There was another black screen. Just watch out what the presenter will be saying now.
Well, if you're wondering what's happened, so am I. Actually, the computer that we have running our news from time to time took off and went wild. So what we're going to do is start over from the top of the Bears and tell you once again about the 30-10 victory they had over Detroit today out at Soldier Field. We'll show you from the top and show you. Right,
so the computer was taken over, and this was back in the 1987. So what you just witnessed now, this is a live hijack of a broadcasting TV back in the 80s. Now, fast forward to the future, and to actually 6 years ago now. This is the TV5 Mond attack, which is one of the world's 3 largest television networks, accessed by nearly 300 million people around the world, was taken off air in April 2015. And you can see here what the hackers did in this high level of the timeline of events. They get first the access to the RDP, and then it wasn't useful for them. And this was in January 2015. In February, they managed to get or hack one of the suppliers of the TV5, which is a company in Netherlands providing cameras in the TV5 studios. They managed to get some VPN accounts, and from there they landed inside TV5 network. Now they're inside the network. They managed to get access to some accounts, and then they escalated the privilege to get more access to AD accounts, and they stole some social media passwords. And the Doomsday's date was on the 8th of April, when they started first by defacing the website and posting information about the French soldiers fighting ISIS on social media accounts for the TV5 network, but the actual target was here, which is they managed to erase the firmware of all the switches and routers, resulted in the black screens of the global broadcaster. So now, why this is relevant to this conversation of the Cyber Doomsday on a national level? Just imagine if these hackers were behind this attack, they instead of causing black screens, they play something. They broadcast some videos of disinformation and fake news to this large audience. So this is one attack against one broadcaster. For our scenario here, we are discussing whether if this happens, the TV5 hack, if it happens across multiple major UK TV and radio channels, happens all and orchestrated all in at one time, and they all say the same message. So to talk about this and see how this can happen in the future, I prepared this fictional, a bit extreme scenario, and this is about the future threat that we are preparing for when some hackers funded by other governments, they manage to do this kind of disinformation on this larger scale across the nation. So as you can see here, this is the fictional scenario again on the 25th of December 2025 at midday. And imagine this: major TV and radio national broadcasters start streaming breaking news saying all nuclear power stations in the UK have been hijacked by orchestrated cyber attack, the irony, and cause explosions, and urging people to evacuate immediately from major cities due to radiation leaks. And after a few minutes from this first breaking news, or the fake breaking news, a second one will come in, and the same channels will be saying, by the way, because of this explosions in the nuclear power stations, now the water treatment facilities have been manipulated and contaminated, and the water supplied to people across the country now is poisonous, and please avoid drinking water or using for washing. You can imagine the panic that this can cause. And within these messages on the major TV channels, thousands of fake social media accounts on social media networks, they will start trending videos and photos of people dying in streets across cities. It's all fake and all designed that looks like real, and people rushing to buy water from supermarkets, and hospitals overcrowded. Now this is the fictional hypothetical extreme scenario. Let's see how this will look like if it happens, and then I'll walk you through the attack scenario using the cyber chain. So let's see the blueprint of the attack, starting first with the aim. And let's be clear about the aim here. So this is about orchestrating multiple cyber attacks, similar to the TV5 Mond hack, but to broadcast fake news and disinformation at the same time across major UK TV and radio channels. And this will be accompanied by thousands of fake social media accounts spreading the same disinformation. And let's go to the Christmas day on the year 2025 to see how this will play out. So people sitting at home, and the Christmas day was chosen because to guarantee more people being at home and watching television. So people sitting at home, and suddenly they will see breaking news from multiple channels they trust, and they will see the same presenters they trust from these TV channels, but because the hackers will use deepfake to make them to manipulate the presenter's appearance to make them say something else. This is a pre-recorded message. It's all fake news, but it will say the messages we talked about the nuclear explosions and the radiation leaks across major cities in the UK. And I'll talk more about the deepfake technology when we get to the attack demo. And it's a matter of, again, using this deepfake technology. It's an AI-based approach. They can just use any videos. They will make it look like this is a UK site or city or streets, and they can just use different videos to make the message look more believable. And then a few minutes later, after finishing the messages about the nuclear power stations explosions, they will another breaking news about another fake news or another breaking news saying water treatment facilities being contaminated and urging people to stop drinking water. And it's all to cause more panic in the nation. And as I said, with the TV news and the fake TV news, that the pre-recorded messages and using deepfake, thousands of social media accounts will start tweeting and posting and sharing and resharing trending fake photos and videos of events happening to support this message from the TV channels, to guarantee more people will see like this is real, this is real happening. This is the TV channel saying it, and now the social media is flooded with these posts and pictures of cities in the UK. Now let's see how the hackers will do it using a methodology that is called the cyber kill chain. I'm sure those who work in the cybersecurity space with us today, they understand this methodology. This is a Lockheed Martin's methodology to help understand how hackers hack into any target with these stages. So starting first with the reconnaissance, hackers will do reconnaissance on the target organizations one by one. They will go to social media. They will see. They go to the people's section under the company page. They'll see who's who basically and whom to target, and they will try to gather as much information as possible on the systems used for each broadcaster. Online research is already rich of information anyone can find. If you are familiar with a website called Shodan, and Shodan is basically if you go to it and then you just search for an IP address or search for certain services operating on the internet worldwide, not necessarily in the UK, but you can specify the country. And this screenshot here you can see on the screen, I took it yesterday about some. This is public available website, so you can see this is some publicly available services of CCTV cameras or remote desktop connections for machines. This is not necessarily broadcasting, this could be anyone, but just to tell you how easy it is these days to use just online search to gather information about the target. Social engineering, and also another source could be the job descriptions, where when people post a job advert, they put sometimes they leak some or reveal some information about the specific systems they have in the organization. It's all available online, and that's the reconnaissance phase of the attack. Then they will do the openizing a malware to send it to the targets or gain initial access. On the right-hand side, this is the common cybersecurity vulnerabilities of broadcasters. This was published in a report by the EBU, European Broadcasting Union, in August 2019. And you can see the common themes of vulnerabilities in the broadcasting sector, whether it is unsupported software or impact systems, but even default credentials and the absence of encryption or unnecessary features where they were the cause of these attacks. So in this scenario, we're talking about hackers will focus on, as I said, ways to get into the broadcasting systems and networks. They will either use 0 days or they can even use unpatched vulnerabilities. And these are either unsupported operating systems or broadcast applications, or could be disclosed by the suppliers but not patched yet by the broadcasters, or sophisticated 0-day exploits. They will openize the malware, and then it's time to deliver it. Delivery, as you guessed it, will be mainly through phishing. And phishing, I added this angle to the phishing, which is the spoofed emails. So they will send you an email from a trusted someone you know. I mean, the obvious phishing and the trend we are doing, and as Pauline said earlier, don't open a link from an unknown sender. If you imagine how many organizations today they still have misconfigured SPF document demarc protocols, which is these are email protocols, to stop spoofing attacks. So they will send you an email that looks like from someone you know, but they're actually from the hackers. But they misuse this email system from your suppliers or people you know, when they gather the information about you as a supplier, as a broadcaster. You can see from the illustrations here again. So they can hack into your suppliers, or the suppliers of your suppliers, or the suppliers of your supplier's supplier. The list can go on until they manage to get into the access to your organization. Unfortunately, this is very easy, and it's been evidenced in many attacks. The SolarGate one is the obvious example we witnessed last December. They can also buy credentials from the dark web, and they can also use publicly available information to get into systems that are not protected well. And again, remember the what we are facing now in the pandemic time of the remote workers, and this is the home security of your users, and this can be much easier than attacking your organization and or your suppliers even. So that's the delivery phase. Moving to the exploitation and installation. So the aim obviously here, after they deliver the malware, they will try to get initial access and install this malware to allow them to have remote access tools. So this is remotely accessing now servers or services inside your organization. This example talking about Windows Server, where they once they install the remote access tool and they have gained access, they will start lateral movement within your organization, get more accounts and the credentials to systems that are not protected maybe by MFA, multi-factor authentication. Once they are once they secure the remote access to your system and the server is compromised, then the next phase will be the command and control. And the command and control, this is using stealthy techniques to hide their tracks and avoid detection. That's going to be for sure. And just a message for if we have security SOC analysts with us today, just be careful. The recent attacks happened that were witnessed recently. They were using friendly countries' IP addresses and domains. So in this scenario we're talking about, hackers will not necessarily have call outs to IP addresses in countries you don't trust. They will most likely will use IP addresses and domains registered within the UK or within a friendly country that we consider. So that's a command and control. They have hands-on keyboard, remotely managing, remotely accessing your infrastructure. Then it will come to the actions on objective, which is the final stage of the cyber kill chain, where it will utilize the deep fake technology. And this is something that exists today, but maybe not yet fully utilized by the bad guys. But if you're not familiar with deep fake, it's a video of a person in which their face or body has been digitally altered so that they appear to be someone else. And this is ideal for spreading disinformation. The technology and it's based on artificial intelligence and machine learning. It already exists today, and you can just Google it or check on YouTube. There are many even people explaining how this works, and you can try it at home. You imagine you have a country, a government with fully funding the hackers to design these pre-recorded video messages to inject it into your basically put the message here to inject it within or manipulate the assets in your playlist, replacing videos scheduled for broadcasting with others designed by these hackers. So to finish with, this is a summary of why there's a likelihood of success within this futuristic fictional scenario. I listed 10 reasons here, and this is observations on our sector in general, and watching countless of webinars and seminars and conferences on what's happening in our sector and what the cybersecurity challenges, which can and probably will make us vulnerable to this kind of potential future threats. The first one I want to start with is the elephant in the room, with the flat networks make the identity and access management and systems integration real challenge. The second one is the legacy systems and protocols used everywhere within the broadcast sector in general. Suppliers, broadcasters is all about engaging with other organizations and partners to share and exchange content, which from hackers' perspective will make it easier for them to get in remotely. From security perspective, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, the CIA. In broadcasting, the focus mainly comes on availability, because we are broadcasters. We want to be always on air. And then the second priority will be integrity and confidentiality, which makes it interesting for hackers when they design attacks. Silo by design between IT and broadcasting on infrastructure level. And the cybersecurity solutions, unfortunately, still today in broadcasting is still way behind than IT. IT, they have plenty of security solutions, but when it comes to choosing and applying the same security solutions for IT into broadcasting, you'll face all these incompatibilities and potential bringing the broadcast down. So we need to be very careful with introducing security solutions, but this is the reality of today. There's a general underestimation of the impact of realistic deepfake videos, and this is not just the sector, but even on a public level, and awareness on the national level, I think, is required to understand the impact and make people question what they see on WhatsApp or on social media, and when they receive it, is it real or it's a deep fake? And that's something I think we need to work on collectively. Content protection, that's an interesting point. It relies heavily on the most difficult subject in cybersecurity, which is cryptography, the PKIs and all this stuff. There are only a few handful of people, maybe around the country, they understand it fully end to end. And this was addressed a few months ago in the DSEI event in London. 9 is we're still in the early days of the DevSecOps, or introducing security within the development lifecycle, and which makes the supply chain attacks more likely. And finally, because this futuristic threat is planned on a Christmas day, so it's more likely that more people will be at home watching television, which means more targeted people will be witnessing this, and also it's a change of freeze within the broadcasting sector. And that's it. Thank you so much. Back to you, Alex.
Thank you very much, Assad. Really interesting, and it's amazing to see the breadth of ways and attack surfaces that there are in a broadcast network. In fact, there has been some instances in the last year or so where broadcast networks have been infiltrated through things like production equipment that's been plugged into the network, and it's using default passwords. So sometimes it's the most basic things, really. But as you saw there as well, there's also some cutting-edge technology that's on the horizon as well. So that's the attack side of things. So Pauline, is there what's the approach we could take for the defence? Kind of, I guess, based on what you were talking about earlier about the kind of quality management systems and secure by design, kind of as a culture within the organisations.
So I think first it is a case of know what systems, know what you've got there. What you're working with. Is it a legacy system? Can it be patched? If it can be patched, patch it. If it can't be patched, look at the risk. Look at the risk to your business. Look, as I mentioned earlier, look at the supply chain. What have you got coming in, and how have you got it coming in? Make sure really you sort of like aim to lock down your system as much as you can. For your own business. I'm very aware with the broadcast sector. The normal line to me is, but we're creative. We need to keep all our ports unlocked. We need to use USBs, and not everybody does. Some people within the organisation does. So make sure you have the right security set up for your business. A reporter may need to bring a USB stick in because he's film something and plug it straight into the system. That may be fine for him, but does the finance person need that as well? No, they don't. Potentially no, they don't. So it's like knowing your system, knowing what you actually need, and know what risks you're prepared to take. As a business, as an organisation, and obviously the more risks you are prepared to take, the more it opens you up to something being done. Make sure you have good backups. And as I mentioned during my presentation, make sure you exercise those backups. Does everybody know what to do if the same thing happened, within your organisation is happened at TV5, TV5 Mond, or make sure you have those resilience plans. I think that's another key one as well. Thanks.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, I mean, just I guess on that as well, there's obviously one thing having lots of mitigations in place, but ultimately, nothing's 100% secure. So what happens if someone did get in and you notice that they're in? Is there, somewhere you got to kind of report this kind of stuff? Like you mentioned the National Cybersecurity Centre have got reporting.
So yeah, if you have identified somebody on your networks at whatever stage, please get in contact with NCSC there. On our website, there is a quick link into sort of like reporting an incident. If you've been in contact with me over anything, you'll see I've also got the link on my email address. I'll share it in the chat in a moment. But yes, report it into NCSC. NCSC will then triage it. They will look at it, see what criteria it meets. We work on a scale from a C1 to a C5 incident. If you've hit a C5 incident, we'll be at your door as well. So if it's a C1, it's a lower level incident. But if we identify multiple companies or organizations having C1 incidents at the same time, you know, that raises the bar for that incident. So please email, if it's safe to email in. If it's not safe to email, then there's a phone number as well that you can ring, and I'll put both up in the chat in a moment. But please report those incidents. We can then do the triage. If it's criminal activity, we can refer it then straight into the National Crime Agency or the police force. If it's a true cyber crime and it reaches our threshold, then NCSC will be helping you investigate. We will be letting, or we will be hoping that you'll let DCMS know. We will be encouraging you to let anybody that regulates you. So it may be an Ofcom issue. It may be that it's personal data that's disappeared off your site. So we'll be encouraging you to report that as well to the Information Commissioner, as you're mandated to do. And then we will work through and triage and provide you with advice and support with that incident ongoing, and it will actually be raised up through our incident management process.
Yeah, perfect. So good to know that there's support there, and yeah, you're not on your own if something like this happens. Yeah,
there is, and I have been called, you know, at 8:30 on a Saturday morning when I've been out walking my dog or dogs, because one of the broadcasters has got an issue, you know, so it's not unknown, you know, for us to be, but our incident management team works 24/7.
Yeah, perfect. All right, thanks very much.
Okay.
So we'll get to questions in a minute for everyone. So I can see there's some coming in the chat. So Pauline will come back to you, and Paul and Assad as well. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll get to them in just a second. So that concludes the kind of scenario talks and some of the outline of what's happening in the industry to protect ourselves about these kind of things. I'm just going to quickly mention some of the work we're doing at the DTG, and then we'll get to the questions and answers. And I'm going to mention a bit about the PSTI bill as well, which I think one of the questions has just come in about that. So at the DTG, this event's come about because we've got our DTG Cybersecurity Working Group, which Assad is the chair of. DTG is a members organisation, so we represent the TV industry, the broadcast industry, the media sector. So our members are drawn from broadcasters, content providers, TV manufacturers, content owners, all of these kind of people across the ecosystem. So our Cybersecurity Working Group aims to provide some of the thought leadership, bringing together a kind of collection of the industry experts to talk about the media ecosystem, and as Pauline said, really knowing what the threats are and understanding what the process is and what we can do to mitigate them. And we link in with NCSC, DCMS, Ofcom and people like that to get a broad picture. We provide that kind of industry oversight and coordination back to the group so you can understand what's going on, and then we can form a picture about what we need to do. And then these will form the deliverables of the group. So if there's something we need to do to mitigate these threats and challenge them head on, as I mentioned earlier, then the group is a great platform to support that and bring in collaborative work and provide resources to support the activities. And as an example of this, one of the things we've been looking at recently is a cyber security hub, which I've mentioned on some of the previous calls. And the idea of this is we provide a service for offering cybersecurity solutions to those who have cybersecurity problems, and this would support the media and entertainment ecosystem. So it will bring together kind of trusted suppliers for dealing with some of the issues that people are seeing, and then they can kind of coordinate on what's the best solution to solve some of these issues and what's out there in the market. And then obviously this has many advantages across the board. Security vendors get access to the market and to profiling and target sales and stuff. You as the members of it get access to the solutions and vetted suppliers. And then this supports all our members and helps them bring together a more, I don't want to scan it of my security scan, just bad timing there, coincidentally. But yeah, adds value to our membership as well. So being part of the DTG. And one of the other key things we're looking at in the DTG group at the moment is secure by design legislation. So you may have seen yesterday that there was a new bill that was introduced into Parliament, the Product Security and Telecommunications Infrastructure Bill. And this is going to introduce legislation which means that all consumer IoT devices have to go through a series of cybersecurity minimum standards before they can be put on the market, and that's in the UK. Europe are also doing a similar thing through the Radio Equipment Directive, and at the moment those requirements are aligned, but there may be some slightly separate requirements for the UK and Europe, but ultimately there's going to be requirements. So the bill went through Parliament yesterday. To answer Ian's question, we don't have any indication of when that's going to come in as yet. At the moment, it's gone through the kind of first processes, and it'll have to go through some further processes in Parliament. But yeah, it will be introduced at some point, and it will be on new kit placed on the market from whenever the legislation comes in, not legacy kit. But yeah, this would have implications for TV products, which are Internet of Things devices, sound bars, anything that's network connected. Basically, will need to meet this legislation. So we set up a company called SafeShark, which is a test service which allows you to kind of test your product against the requirements and get certification from BSI, so you can showcase to retailers and consumers that your product has met the requirements required for cybersecurity. And we go over and above the minimum requirements and cover all aspects of the available standards. So that's just something about SafeShark and DTG. If you want to look at joining the DTG or getting involved in our cybersecurity group and liaising with ourselves and NTSC and DCMS and people like that, then there's our contact details there. We'll share all of these slides at the end of the session, and then get in touch and feel free to ask any further questions. Perfect. So, but for now, we'll get onto the Q&A. We see we've got a few questions coming in, so I'll go back to the top. If we can get Paul, Pauline, and Assad back on the screen, and then we'll go through some of these questions. So, first one, we've had a few in from Dave Fielder. What about national cyber strategy, HMG national cyber strategy, and will this eventually inform and wrap into all of this stuff? So I'm not familiar with the HMG national cyber strategy. So, Paul, is this something that you're across and you can maybe field an answer to?
Yeah, I guess the simple answer is it's not published yet, is it? So it's
Right, yeah.
So one always gets into slight trouble if one decides to publish the strategy before it's published and all of that. So I'm not about to do that.
Yes.
But what would I say? I think the best way, when somebody once challenged me and said, do you have too many strategies in defense and security? I'd say, well, it's better than having one global strategy. This next strategy will be a coherent part of what you've heard today. So I think it should guide and it should provide at open publication some of the key messages you've heard. So I would probably just direct you forward to that and hopefully it would be helpful. But Pauline, I don't know if you wanted to add, but that's probably all I wanted to say.
Yeah, in all fairness, I think you've probably summed it up. I too wouldn't like to sort of like guess exactly what's included, but I think it's a case of wait and see. I personally would rather have the strategy out there to make sure we've got something that we can use, and companies such as, you know, of the members here can actually use it and get that guide for and the way forward. Yeah, so yeah.
Perfect, thank you. The next one was also from Dave Fielder, and again for Dr. Paul. What key tools do you see recommend as the best to manage cybersecurity and vulnerabilities? Cyber and security vulnerabilities. I mean, I guess the wider question is some of these exciting technologies you're talking about, AI and quantum technologies and things like that, are they likely to infiltrate into kind of civilian life as well and broadcast networks and things, or are they going to be preserve of the military and people like that?
So I don't think, well, we, as Pauline was saying, we need whole systems to be secure. So just having a military part of a system secure and not the other half is a bit of a disaster. So we do need security across the piece. The way I was thinking about this question was actually, I spoke very briefly about, you know, needing to respond much more quickly and what will things like artificial intelligence or other decision making in an AI way give us. So that's probably what I'm intrigued by. But the thing I'd want to really put the spotlight back on is the human in the system. And probably just the human and the opportunities that human have. So I would say that when you're thinking about cyber and security vulnerabilities and you're looking at those cyber vulnerability assessments that we do, and we've matured and now passed most of the responsibility out of DSTL for the military to third parties, except for the most sensitive systems. I'd say really do look at the human and the connection between the human and the system and the silliness that can occur. So that's probably what I would just re-highlight. So you are going to have to take a whole system approach, and you are actually going to have to address some of those challenges. And I think Pauline's spoken to some of the fundamental challenges, be that in hardware, chip technology, and also we're really fascinated in the future what modern future compilers and computer programs could actually be that are inherently more secure. So it's those kind of areas that are on my mind when you raise that question.
Oh yeah, I mean, you mentioned actually about self-fixing, self-recovery, and autonomous procedures as well. I mean, how far are we away from that kind of thing? Does that take the human element out of it?
Well, you need to be careful whenever you use the phrase "take the human element out of an automatic system" in defence, but there will be a need to respond more quickly at times than the human can do so, and depending on what the impact of that response is, then that's a perfectly sensible thing to be part of the solution. So that is absolutely key research. That is what we've been showcasing in some of our engagements, looking for novel solutions, is how to bring in that faster AI, autonomous tracking, and how to use the vast amounts of data that are out there to do recognition of what is occurring.
Very interesting. Pauline and Assad, anything to add to that?
I think that's good. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, nothing really from our side. I think it's just key to remember that actually you're always going to have a human in there at some stage.
Yes.
You know, whether it's at the design, the technology, or sort of like looking at the results, or the computer still looks at the results, but somebody has to make a decision on things. So yeah, still going to have a human in there somewhere.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, one not quite related to broadcast, but related to the human in there. You mentioned about public Wi-Fi networks and practicing good methodology, best practice, and that kind of stuff. Someone's asked about whether a VPN would avoid the issues on public Wi-Fi networks.
Yeah, so a VPN allows an organisation to provide secure comms between two physical devices that are in separate locations. So yes, it would.
Okay.
You go through a private tunnel, then VPNs are encrypted as well. So it does encrypt your network. So it certainly helps, yes.
Good to know. Good to know. Right, the next one, I guess, is for Assad. You mentioned about DevSecOps. Is this a real issue for media and broadcast? It is true for development programs and projects.
Yeah, that's correct. So basically, the idea of mentioning DevSecOps is being in the early days, this is a universal issue and not necessarily for broadcasters. But what we are affected by is the supply chain, the suppliers we receive the solutions from. If it's not built with secure by design sort of approach, it will be prone for vulnerabilities and exploits. And because of the rapid development that happens with the agile software development and for projects, without security being considered, we will all in this broadcast sector will be vulnerable to introducing vulnerabilities by our suppliers. And as Pauline mentioned earlier about setting the minimum expectations from your suppliers is a key factor of reducing this attack vector.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, and then is that often going to be very difficult? Is this going to be a whole new approach for some organizations? Because often they're getting perhaps systems that are pieced together from many different suppliers and softwares, and then it comes together as a package at the end. How realistic is it to be able to keep a track of all of that software and those suppliers?
No, I think we as a sector and working with the government, DCMS and NCSC, we need to make sure we raise our voice of raising awareness and making sure our suppliers are aware that we are looking for security, not only just as a survival requirement, but also to be a competitive advantage for them to sell us products. When you go to any supplier these days, we check where they are based, as well as whether they have any security certification. And this is already started now to be some suppliers that are losing business because they don't meet our minimum security requirements. But as a sector level, if all the broadcasters, they think about, you know what, let's try to push on the standard or push on the minimum requirements for security suppliers, I think we can push into seeing evidence of secure by design or secure development life cycle, and DevSecOps is actually being progressed. If we don't push it as the clients, they will not consider it. That's a market of demand and supply.
And yeah, I think that's where groups like ours can help push that message forward and also coordinate with the likes of got NTSC here and DCMS and people like that to kind of get any kind of frameworks to support that if needed. One kind of technical question we got in. How does resilience against cybersecurity threats differ between traditional DTT broadcast and delivery of content over the internet? Are there additional aspects that need to be in place as we increasingly move to the latter? Asad, is that something you can field have been managing of a kind of broadcast network at the BFPS?
Yeah, I mean, I can approach it from an angle of saying, think about whatever system you have, whether it's DTT or the digital connected systems. We're talking about these days, and this is ongoing a threat. Hackers can remotely access into your organization, into your network, whatever the systems, the underlying technology you are using, ultimately they are getting in. So the same mindset of us protecting our physical offices and premises against intruders. We're talking about now the likelihood of someone external can get into your offices and your networks. And now it's almost becoming real as real as, or maybe more likely to happen than a physical intruder. And this makes it whatever attack that will impact the traditional DTT will be under the mercy of those intruders and what they can do with it. So I think it's the idea of securing your external access systems and networks and access to systems by people and by processes and system integrations. I think this is something it's about really time to think about it. So when you think about physical intruders, think about remotely accessed systems and the impact they can do once they are inside your networks.
Okay, yeah. Paul or Pauline, anything to add to that one? No.
I think I'd just like to clarify there, you know, it brings different cybersecurity risks. There are cybersecurity risks with both, but it just brings different ones. So, you know, you have to look slightly different field in that. So, and that's something that we'll be working on in the next year as well. So I've already highlighted it to our architects and the teams that sort of like look at these issues for us. So content over the internet, as broadcasters move to that, it's going to raise its head. We've done some work on it already, but we will be working on it over the next year as well. Thanks.
Okay. And yeah, just to add at the DTG, we're looking a lot at the kind of future of TV distribution and broadcast and internet, and I guess how these are converging in a way at the moment. And there's many standards to look at that. But yeah, it'll certainly form part of our cyber discussions as well. So our next question was on the PSTI bill. I mentioned that, and it is going to be coming into law, but there's a question from me and Knowles there. But we don't have timescales as yet. There's a few more stages of Parliament that it's got to go through in the House of Lords and things like that. First readings, second readings, and so on. But once it comes into law, it will not become required for retrospective legacy devices. That we do know that, and that's in a press release that was sent out yesterday.
I just wanted to come in on that style of that observation, though. So although it won't be retrospective, probably with my mindset, one ought to be equally concerned. So, you know, it doesn't mean that you won't then get applied to old technology or otherwise. But from my point of view, one ought to be considering anything that one has that, you know, would it be accepted in the future? I guess it's obvious, but for me, it's just a really important cultural point not to try and see advantage by its lack of retrospectiveness.
Yes,
so I mean, we really need to kind of go, well, that's a problem then. As a user.
Well, I think the whole thing came about as a real culture change. It's about secure by design, and as Asad said, it's moving to a point where a lot of people are being a lot more rigorous in how they kind of get suppliers on board and things like that. So really, if it's not compliant for the legislation, that should be an alarm bell, rather than, as you said, a kind of side way around things.
I guess in a sense we need to do at least as well as the legislation, I guess is my point.
Yes, yeah, indeed, yeah. The legislation only covers kind of some fairly basic things, and I think what we're saying is that there's a whole other bunch of requirements on top of that in the latest standards, and you'd be good to kind of deal with all of those and not just the minimum.
I think one of the things that I'm just scanning an article about it now, but manufacturers will now need, with the new bill when it comes in, will need to be transparent with their customers about disclosing and addressing security bugs in their products, something they've not had to do you know, before. They'll have to create a public reporting system for flaws discovered, you know, in their devices. They have to get their password management right there, so they can't be using default passwords or easy to guess default passwords on devices like routers, etc. They've got to be unique and not resettable to any universal factory setting. So, and in addition to that, companies will have to state how long they will actually support that product. You know, so rather than, you know, a consumer may go, well, I'm not going to buy that product because it's only supported for 6 months, whereas product B might be supported for 2 years. You know, it's a no-brainer then, really.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but some of the things we're looking at the DTG in our working group are how do we create a kind of level playing field for the manufacturer as well, so that doesn't become a kind of competition marker without any real basis to support it. So someone can't just say, oh, we're going to support a product for 20 years without any real means of being able to do that. So it's about the enforcement as well, I think, that's going to be key. Okay, so we've only got a minute left. Very sorry if we didn't get to all your questions. There was quite a few on the end there, and we're out of time, I'm afraid, but we'll see if we can maybe get some of these addressed offline and send them out afterwards. But we'll share the slides. We've got permission to share the slides from all our speakers. So it leaves me at this point just to say thanks very much to Dr. Paul Keeley, to Pauline B, and to Dr. Asad Musa for joining us today. It was really informative. Yeah, real insight into some of the world of cybersecurity, which I guess is seen as maybe the preserve of the technical, perhaps geeks, if you want to say. I don't know, but is yeah, something we all need to be considering, really. So yeah, thanks very much. Really informative.
Thank you very much, and all the best.
Yeah, all
Definitely.
the best.
Thank you.
Contact
Thank you,
details there.
everyone.
If you want to get in touch, please feel free to do so. Thanks very much.